This is the Behavioral View. I'm Shannon Hill, and joining me is Nissa Van Etten. We're your hosts for candid conversations about applied behavior analysis. No gimmicks, just real talk, practical tips, and maybe a few laughs. Come on and join us. Let's have some fun. Hey everyone, would you like to get at CEU for this episode? Listen closely for the announcement of 3 secret words delivered throughout the episode. Take note of those words, and we'll tell you where to go to get your CEU when the show is over. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Behavioral View. It's our February 2024 episode. It's second episode of the 4th year, so we're very happy to be here. My name is Shannon Hill. I'm the editor-in-chief at CentralReach Institute, and I'm here as always with my boss now. Boss, would you like to introduce yourself?
I would like to say esteemed colleague, not boss. Nissa Van Etten, and I'm the director of clinical training and CR Institute. And for you listening in, it is Monday, and we are having a case of the Mondays.
Yep. We might be finding this to be a little bit more chaotic than normally. Well, this time we brought a guest from the staff staff directory of CentralReach as well. And we have Autumn Bailey with us. Autumn, would you like to say hi and tell a little bit about what you do here?
Sure. I was just moved to District Success Manager within CentralReach. I worked with Dr. Perdington since 2003. I've had a lot of experience with the ABLLS and the AFLS, and now moving into CR assessments. I was a special education teacher, and I got my degree in speech and hearing sciences. So I have tons of experience with working with kiddos and getting all the goals and skills that they need.
I did not know that part about the speech and hearing sciences.
It's true.
So, okay, that makes you multifaceted in this. And I suddenly have a whole lot of other questions for you that we'll save for another time, because today we are here to talk about all things assessments, particularly ABLLS and AFLS. But before we kick into that, it's time for the question of the day. All of us are dog people. And it leads me to the most natural question, probably disclosing a little bit about myself and asking the question, how well trained is your dog?
Are you answering first, or do we get to jump in?
Yeah, who's answering?
Jump right in, whoever wants it.
Well, I have 2 dogs, and they're both COVID puppies. So first and foremost, they were 2 dogs. The 2 youngest, we had an older dog who passed recently, but we had to hire a behavior analyst to train them. One of them is a Doberman Great Dane, and she errs on the side of anxious. So that meme that everyone says where it's like, I got a dog for my anxiety. She is my dog for my anxiety, who has more anxiety than me. But it was really interesting. We hired this woman called herself a behaviorist, and she came in and, she talked about parent training and said, will you follow through on all of these protocols that we implement? Of course, my husband and I are like, yes, we absolutely understand and we will. And we did for 2 years. And now it's we use the instruction intermittently, but then we also reinforce intermittently, which makes it really difficult for Daisy to comply with. So my dog is as well behaved as I am in managing her behavior.
2 years is a long time to comply, though. I will say hats off, because my story does not meet up to that. So I'll go last. Autumn, how about you?
Well, I have 2 dogs too, Coco and Chai. Coco is 8. So she's a little tiny 7-pound terrier. She is so smart, and she is very well trained. Our other one is 1. So he's a puppy, and he's not. So he's not as well trained, and he's not as smart either, but we'll give it to them. I mean, I have them both trained to ding the bell on the door when they want to go outside. So they both do that really well. That's like the only activity that they're really, really good at. They bark.
So, did you do all of the training?
Mm-hmm. And my kids.
Oh, your kids got it from that?
I taught them. Yeah, they're so good at stuff like that. Yes.
That's fun. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, mine also is a COVID pup. She's 4 now. So I have to stop using that as an excuse for everything because years of life where she has been socialized. And so I got her at the same time that my son was about to graduate from high school. I was about to sell my house. I was like, I have to find a new reason to live. Um, so when she first came to live with us, she got really good training. We did sessions in the floor. I was super great at it. But the problem with it is that it was in the throes. I literally got her I think March the 7th.
Oh, right before COVID.
2020. Yeah, right. I got her. Whatever the date was, we had been at Calaba and they shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
So I got on the plane, came home like, hey, we're going to be home for a couple of weeks.
I'm happy.
We'll have a great start to training, which did. But she didn't get the social skills training part. And so she's still not great with other humans, especially strangers. And she's overly defensive of her car and her leash. So, yeah, I've got that dog that has to be held very close when other people are around, but then she can like speak 7 languages. So it is interesting though, Nissa, when you said that. I did, once we moved here, we left from having a lot of land where she was running free and that sort of stuff to living downtown, and she's got to be on a leash and she's going to see more people.
Mm-hmm.
So I took her to puppy school, dog school. And because she was reactive, they gave me homework to do to get her ready for group. And it required me to, and I think I may have even told this before, I was supposed to not take her in the car and leave her alone in the car, like in a parking lot or whatever. And I couldn't live with that because of the puppy side where I would leave. And I was supposed to put some sort of covering on my window so that when the postman arrives, then she doesn't lunge at the window. And I'm unwilling to do that as well. So I coped with that by not going back.
Didn't like the plan.
I didn't, even though I understood the logic and I thought that the plan was correct. At the end of the day, I wasn't willing to do it. And so it's been a learning lesson about being on the other side of these things. So there you go. I think it's still a good lead off into what you guys are spending a lot of time doing. And Nissa, maybe we should give a little bit of backstory about your job at the Institute is new, but people may or may not be aware of what you were doing with assessments before you made that switch.
That's a good point. Prior to coming over to the Institute, I was with Autumn, primarily on CR assessments, and we worked with the product team and education and therapy, and really moving the assessments from, and many of you on the call, if you're listening in, you may have most of your experience in the actual paper pencil book protocols for the ABLLS and the AFLS. So they're also available digitally. And last year we merged them into one assessment digitally. And then Autumn and I, a lot of our role in the last 2 years was really developing and providing trainings for educators and clinicians in terms of if the ABLLS and AFLS are appropriate for your learners, how to utilize them, how to set up and prepare for an assessment, how to conduct an assessment, and then what to do after you have administered that assessment to select appropriate learning objectives for your student, your client, or the individual that you're working with.
That is a huge undertaking. And
Yeah.
let me pause just a second to say something that we're doing differently with behavioral view this year that this is going to lead right into. We've done 3 years of talk about, really. And so this year we talked about amongst ourselves, what can we do to make things better? We're really focusing in the Institute on helping our customers develop clinical competency. So, and when we think about that, we think about actually giving you skills, not just listening to ideas about how to change your practice or things that you can do differently. That's important, but it's just the first step. So one of the things that you're going to find after you watch this episode, listen to this episode, whatever you're doing, if you go and get your CEU or you just go to the Institute, even if you don't need a CEU, but you're interested in ABLLS, we're going to give you quite a bit of additional trainings you can take that break it down for you into more user friendly, I guess, training. And some of that is stuff that you guys have been doing over the past few years, like the cohort series, right?
Absolutely. I think it's a nice add-on because we see a lot of people who may or may not assume they know how to conduct an assessment, depending on they're in the clinics in the schools. But we've kind of, with our experience and then working with Dr. Partington and Mueller, really pulled apart a process to say, from the minute you open the book or the assessment, here's where you can start and finish. We have PDFs and some nice information that will help, even if you've been doing it for a long time, kind of refresh how you might evaluate assessments.
So here's one thing that I know to be true about the ABLLS and AFLS. There are a lot of protocols and there are a lot of items. How does this integration help me with that?
Ooh, good question. Autumn, you want to answer that?
Integration of both of them together. We love this topic because we always tell everyone that there's this preconceived notion that you use the ABLLS until a certain age, and then you switch over to the AFLS and you pick a certain protocol on the AFLS. And then once they're done with that one, you pick another protocol on the AFLS. And it's just really not cohesive in the fact that they really can be used all together. You can pick some goals in the ABLLS, even if they're older, like say you have a teenager, they might still need some of those syntax and grammar within the ABLLS when they're also working on functional skills in the AFLS. So we like to tell everyone that we're trying to get everyone to move these protocols together. You can pick and choose skill content areas within multiple protocols within the ABLLS and the AFLS to make a really customized goals and skills for each of the students that you're working with.
Autumn, you said that your job title has to do with school districts?
Yes.
So in a former life, when I was consulting in schools, that was kind of a question, is how do we know when to switch from an academic to a functional skills program?
Right.
What kind of things are you hearing from districts now? How are they going about that? Is it an either or in the school district?
No, it's really nice actually, because since we're giving all these trainings, they're very receptive to doing both at the same time. Because even when you're in preschool and you're 3, you still need to, put your laundry in the hamper and throw trash away and things that aren't in the ABLLS but are in the AFLS. So I think school districts are really, really good about knowing the skills that the kids need, even though they're not just academic skills, that they're knowing that they need functional skills as well, even when they're really little. So it's nice to talk to the districts and know that they're using both, which is great.
I'm almost like, I'm always on the other end of that conversation. When do we switch to it? Not, you can incorporate it early.
Right. Yes.
Well, sorry, Autumn. Well, I get really excited about this topic because as we were having the conversation to combine the two and talking to Dr. Partington and Dr. Mueller, Peter Gerhardt and a number of colleagues published a paper. I have it open. It's in 2023, and it's Adulthood Begins in Preschool. So they talked about meaningful curriculum in support of independence early on for individuals with autism and IDD, and stated that a meaningful curriculum is one that is not only individualized to the individual's unique needs, but focusing on independence in the current environment and future environments. So like Autumn's saying, at 3, we should be considering, can the learner take their diaper to the trash? Or if they're going to be in preschool, take their snack and put the trash away. And a lot of the schools and even clinicians that we work with, when we talk about training and we give them access to both, we talk about the self-management domain in the AFLS, which is all about that learner being able to engage and be aware of their own body and space compared to the environment. So if they are in a daycare setting, can they sit there without an aide right behind them managing how long they sit and attend? Can they keep their body without wiggling and touching others? Which is important, when you're in middle school and high school and as an adult, but also equally as important in preschool and kindergarten and early on in your academic years.
Okay, I want to follow up on that, but I have to do a first secret word. And for those of you who are here for a CEU, your first secret word is capable, CAPABLE, capable. I don't know why I always do that spelling bee style. I don't know how to
I love
spell
it.
without doing it.
And you use it in a sentence.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. All right. So let's let's kind of talk more about give me more information about what is beneficial. Like whenever I think about all of those possibilities, and then you're telling me that I can do assessment across all of them at any given point in time, I get a little bit overwhelmed thinking about doing. Okay.
I hear that. We've
Yeah.
heard that. Autumn and I have had so many calls when we hop off, and it's like, okay, same overwhelming, eyes big. I mean, when you put the two together, it's 1,900 skills, right, Autumn?
2,400 skills.
2,400. That's right.
Yeah.
1,900 in the AFLS,
Yeah.
544 in the ABLLS, and now you've got 2,400. But we talk a lot about what the literature tells us, and the Behavioral Health Center of Excellence wrote the white paper on how to select an assessment, which is hone in on what is appropriate for the learner. So look at the referral rationale. Whether you're in the clinical space or in the education space, that learner came to you for a specific reason. Talk about, what's socially significant. So interview the family, interview maybe teachers in the school that work with them or other service providers, and hone in on what's important at the moment versus here's this individual and I'm thinking of all of the things they need. Why are they coming to me and what can I focus on in this period of time? And then look at other skills as you're developing each skill set. So we talk about each kind of skill content area. If you think about the grids, we talk about them as skyscrapers. Sean on the product team calls them skyscrapers every time. So I think we've all adopted it. When we think about skyscrapers, instead of looking at all of the skyscrapers as one learner, think about the skyscrapers necessary in the period of time from the minute you meet the learner until that maybe 6-month authorization or IEP, and hone in on that versus everything at once.
And there are so many different protocols too. And so the thing that we tell everyone is to really look at the skill content areas and look at what's in there. So if you have like an 8-year-old, let's say, you're not going to open the vocational protocol or the independent living skills protocol because that's not within their repertoire right now. They're not looking for a job. They're not living on their own. So you really want to hone in on, they're at school. So you might want to look at the school skills. Do you want to, do stuff at home with the parents? Do they want to make their bed? Do they want to make some snacks or whatever at home? If you're not working with them at home, you don't need to use that one either. So it really kind of, your picks and chooses between the skill level of the student, the age of the student, what you want them to know, what they need to know at that current moment in time.
Okay, so let me see if we can crystallize it a little bit. I really like that. That was helpful. Let's say, for example, that I get a referral and the issue is self-direction. You get that a lot, right? At kindergarten age, like the kindergarten teacher doesn't have time to tell this child every step of the way. Maybe some fine motor issues. I can't open my own snack. I don't know where to hang my coat. I can't remember a routine, blah, blah, blah. Is there some way to help clinicians kind of figure out not only what protocol, but what items within that might be prerequisite skills? Is that easily navigable now that it's more automated in any kind of way?
Yeah, I have so many places to go with that. We just
go for it.
with our product team, and there are a couple things coming in, and hopefully they'll be available by the time this podcast is released. But in the spring of this year, we will have analytics, which used to be in the old web ABLLS, but now we have CR assessments, which are combined, where you are able to not just analytics. We have something that used to be called a program worksheet, but really it allows you to almost highlight the assessment. So think about having the book and saying, okay, well, teacher is saying this is a learner who can't manage himself, can't, recall instruction, and might have some OT type skills that need to be evaluated. You can almost highlight and identify those areas according to what you've been told and pull them into a report that just pulls those skills individually with the scoring criteria, the objective, and then maybe present levels or future levels. And that makes it from this big graph to a honed in report that allows you to kind of further evaluate those skill sets. And then before I turn it over to Autumn, one nice thing about the digital component is that you can share the fine motor domain with the OT. So I can say, hey, Autumn, I'm working with Johnny, and I'm going to look at these areas within my purview in the classroom, but I know you see Johnny for 45 minutes for occupational therapy. Can you just let me know how he does on these fine motor skills? And then we can communicate that way digitally.
I like that. That helps out so much with collaboration too. Yeah.
I think the most important thing about prerequisite skills is kind of knowing what's in it. And so we always mention to go through the skill content areas and just hover over, and it pops up all on its own. So you can see the skill as you hover over and just know what's in there. And, knowing what's in there is the most actually important when you're working with a kiddo, because like say, for instance, they're working on food items. There's a meals at home, there's a meals in the community, there's a meals at school. And knowing that, you would know, well, I need to look at, can they eat the same at home and at school and while they're at McDonald's or whatever. But, if you know what's in there, you know what you're looking for. So for the prerequisites, we always recommend just kind of going through there, hovering over and looking to see what's in there before you're with the kids, so you just know what you're looking for.
What do you guys recommend in terms of what should the training of a new person who's never seen the ABLLS before, what should their training program look like before they're out there assessing on their own?
Training for the individual assessor?
Yeah.
I mean, the first and most important thing that we recommend is opening either the book or the digital assessment. Log in, right? Log in, click. Both assessments have a guidebook that is correlated with the assessment. I think all criterion referenced assessments have some sort of text or manual or guidebook that says, hey, here's how you should consider this assessment. And I think from the behavior analytic perspective, some of us have had access to a class or a course, or maybe our organization sent a 30-minute video on here's what you should consider. But I think, as Autumn is saying, and we say this frequently, just get in there and start clicking around, open up the criteria and understand what scoring is going to look like. Some have 2 boxes in the grid or in the row, and some are 4 boxes. What do those 4 boxes indicate? And it does help to alleviate the overwhelming feeling of I've got 97151 units to assess a learner, and I've opened up the assessment while the learner is sitting with me. In that moment, I'm doing a disservice to myself and the learner in that I'm trying to understand the assessment and score at the same time. So really get in there and prepare just like you would, for any other scenario or test. Which I know it's not a test, it's an assessment. I know Dr. You heard me say that. But if you're going to school, you're going to prepare. If you're going to write a paper, you want to prepare. And it's the same that we want to provide in an assessment scenario.
So what's going on in those in the trainings that you guys are doing? What are you teaching it, and how are you breaking it down?
We have an implementation training, so it kind of goes over the platform and how to use it. But we also have best practices and the purpose of assessments, strategies to use after you've assessed. We have tons of information on training that we love to give, because we like to make sure that everyone's using it appropriately and that the students are getting the best from the assessors as well. So we love the training. We love talking about how to best use it and the purpose of it.
And then what we're developing, which will be in the Institute here in 2024, is each of the protocols and kind of where they're best used. So if you're looking at the basic living skills and the ABLLS, especially for a foundational learning to learn program, here are the materials you're going to need. Here's the best practice in, where to assess these skill sets. We know that there are a ton of assessment kits, but you don't need an assessment kit to conduct a proper assessment. And I think that's what a lot of clinicians and educators are also lacking, is that understanding of I can assess anywhere at any time if I'm prepared, if I know what I'm looking for. If I'm looking at the tact domain, I can just do it within a room. I don't need my tact box, but I just have to set the environment up so that I can have the learner name the things that we see within the environment.
Yeah. Know what's in that room so before you go in there to see if you got enough items, right? Okay. So, Autumn, you had mentioned what to do after the assessment. So, my understanding is that whatever the lowest level skill that is not mastered is found to be, you just write that out as the first goal, right?
I mean, when you're looking at the skyscrapers, we really kind of pick and choose what's best for the student. So, if they are, let's say, they have interverbal skills, but they don't have very many of them. And, you wouldn't necessarily just pick the next interverbal skill. You want to make sure that all of their tacting is great and all their receptive is great before you're moving on to those interverbal skills. Even if they have, they scored 1 or 2, you don't necessarily want to add an interval before you know that their prerequisites are mastered. So it so depends on the student. It's not the perfect answer, but you really want to look at that specific student, see what they know, see what they need to know, and not move too quickly too, because if you add a goal that they're not ready for, then they're not going to meet that goal. So we want to make sure that all those prerequisites are made before we're adding some high level goal that they're never going to reach.
I think we can also think about it from the perspective of component composite analysis, right? Not each of those boxes will be filled in to move to the next box. Sometimes there will be a skill within a content area where there are prerequisite skills that aren't reflected in the assessment. So the assessment is criterion based, but it's hard to explain. Not every row and column is indicative of the next skill set. So as a clinician or an educator, having some understanding of utilizing curriculum that are available to you, programming effectively, making sure that if the ultimate skill is to, for example, copy or imitate, right? The learner still has a number of prerequisite skills. Do they attend and orient? Can they kind of follow an instruction for a period of time? What's that duration? Can they sit and then do they access or indicate that they want the reinforcer present? So just being able to do this also has a number of prerequisite skills that are in other skill content areas or might not even be in the ABLLS assessment, might be in other assessments. So bringing in experience and training and a battery of other assessments supports your decision to select that goal and objective.
So another thing that you guys have been kind of emphasizing has to do with what's important to this learner right now for what their goals are, where they want to get. So maybe we just back all the way up. What's it look like whenever someone is bringing you a client, maybe it's their child, and they're here for an assessment and that they don't really know other than they've been referred for an assessment? How do we help that? How do we get to that meat of what they're here for, what's important to them in that immediate context? Because I'm assuming we're going to do that before we begin doing any kind of assessment, right? We're going to have this talk. And this, I know, you spend a lot of time talking about doing that in a compassionate way and in a culturally appropriate way. So, let's just kind of talk people through, see if we can crystallize what it looks like when you're doing that the best possible way.
Sure. And I think that's our first step when we talk about the process of assessment, right? And I talk about Bailey and Birch's 25 essential skills for behavior analysts a lot because they talk about that very first meeting with any behavior analyst, any organization, or even a special educator who will have ABA in their classroom as the most important meeting for a family receiving services. We are setting the stage on what to expect, what that relationship looks like. And in doing that, we have to be compassionate. We have to demonstrate that you're not just a box to check off on my schedule. You're someone I'm here to really build a relationship with because I'm looking at the big picture of who your child is as I support you in programming. So I think the very first step is building rapport, right? It's getting to know the family and understanding. And I've done this recently. I do a lot of telehealth consultation and parent training. And it's just, this is who I am, but tell me your story. What brought you to me? Where have you come from? What have you experienced? I'll have some of their background information, but I'll let that conversation be guided by the parent. And as they're talking, I'll take little notes on mom indicates, he's got 50 words and dad reports that he may have eloped twice last year. Little notes that will help me kind of guide the conversation to gather information as I'm thinking about these skyscrapers that I'm also filling in during the conversation.
I'm hanging up on something that was not even the important thing in what you said. I was just going to ask, because, I don't know if you know this about me or not, but the bulk of my work has been, I started in the adult world and I worked my way backwards. So I did adults forever and then I did some school-based stuff, but very little experience with young children. How many parents can actually tell you in an accurate way how many words their kid has if they're beyond like 10? Like, I don't know when my son.
Right. I don't like it. That's a great question because I don't ask how many words does your child have. I think if many listeners on the call, and I know Autumn and I have talked about this a ton because Dr. Partington had this, but there's an intake packet that comes with a lot of individuals receiving services. Think about when we go to our medical provider and they give you the packet, and I know I sit there with my kids and I'm like, oh great, yeah, 20 minutes of this appointment where I'm going to be writing as quickly as I can. But in the intake packet, in most organizations or even in schools, it's kind of gathering information about the learner. So there are some questions that might be close-ended, such as, can your child communicate with spoken word, yes or no? Or does your child respond to instructions, yes or no? And then you can have more open-ended, like, please explain, which I know that gets your wrist really tired. But some of that please explain in the intake packet will say, my child asked for juice and my child asked for mom. So some of that is already, especially in an assessment like the ABLLS, it's already filled in because some of the early skills, the less complex skills are, can your child request using 5 words? That's one box you can fill in. And that allows you to start to ask more guided questions. If I've taken that intake packet and kind of translated it to a grid, that allows me to say, oh, it looks like in the intake packet, you told me that Johnny can ask for his juice, ask for a hug. He comes over and asks for his binky. How about some other people in the home? Or, can he name some things when he doesn't want them? And it kind of guides that question. And it shows the family that I did my homework and read the intake packet.
That's so important. Can't tell you how angry I get with doctors when they haven't read any of that crap that they made me fill out 3 weeks in advance.
And your wrists are tired.
I have to answer again and again and again. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love that you guys are encouraging that behavior analysts don't do that. Well, I had to do another secret word. Give me just a second to say the next word. The second secret word is reasonable. REASONABLE. It is reasonable for the behavior analyst to read all the documentation they're sent before meeting with the client.
Mm-hmm.
I love the use of a sentence.
Absolutely. Well, you challenged me there. I had to come through. Okay. So, all right. So that's pretty good at giving us an idea on the very beginning steps. And then something that I hear people talk about, especially in IEP meetings, some of the most difficult IEP meetings I have been when our assessments are showing this. And I don't mean just behavior analytic assessments, but the speech assessment and the clinical psychology assessment, the academic assessment. It's all pointing to the child is here and the parent comes in and they want them to be working on things like writing your name and doing your math. Do you guys have any hints and helps for meeting parents where they envision where their child is going if the data really isn't supporting that they're there yet?
Yes. So I used to in my former special education life, do the IEP, write out all the goals, and then bring the protocol with me. So back in the day, I had the paper protocol, but now I could share the digital format. but have all those goals. We did it like 3 weeks or a month in advance. So we met with the parents way in advance so they knew exactly what was going to happen at the IEP meeting. So we had all the goals listed out and then show them the reason why we picked this goal is because this skyscraper this is where your child is at. And this is, the next couple goals that we want to work on. And if they would say, well, I want them to know colors, for instance, we would say, well, look at this skyscraper. The colors are way up here and Johnny is way down here. So we need to build until we get to the colors. It's a really good visual, the skyscrapers, to show them exactly where their student is at and then where they need to go and the skills that they want them to learn, where those lie on the skyscraper. I love showing that visual to them because then they say, oh, well, that totally makes sense. I get it now. I see that they need to learn all of these things first. So
they're on the path.
in advance. Yes.
Yeah.
Showing them in advance so they're not surprised at the IEP meeting and then explaining why each of these goals that you chose.
Just out of curiosity, when you said we would meet, who would meet?
Okay, so me, the special education teacher, the BCBA at the school, the parent, sometimes the speech and language pathologist and the OT would come too, depending upon the student's level. We had the PE teacher come a lot. He was great. He just wanted to come and he wanted to have his own goals, so he was there too.
That's interesting.
Okay.
And what did you think about that? Was that sometimes there's these pivotal people, right, who get the trust and the maybe they've been longtime community members or whatever, and they have this network with these families. That's fascinating that it was the PE teacher.
He loves me, and he loved having goals for the kids. He was fantastic. I don't know whatever happened to him, but he was great.
Hats off to you, whoever you are.
You're listening.
Yeah. Well, then the opposite can also happen, right? Where we really think that a skill is important to learn, and maybe the family says, well, in our culture, that's not so relevant, or I adamantly do not want them to learn that skill. I mean, for me, it comes up a lot with sexuality stuff, since I did work closely with people who were older, students who were older, independent living, cooking for myself, things like that. What kind of suggestions do you have for negotiating for goals at that point?
I've had, and I tell this story often in our training, so if you've listened in on any of our trainings, you might have heard this, but I've had learners participate in goal selection digitally. So I had a gentleman who was in his 20s, and he didn't agree, right? He didn't think he needed services, but his parents still had the rights and decision-making. And when we did meet, he said, look, I don't want to work on some of the skills my parents want me to work on, but I want to get a job. And we met at Starbucks, and he really wanted to work at Starbucks. So I said, okay, if we can agree upon helping you get a job here at Starbucks, I'm going to send you this digital assessment. He could log in with his parents' help and look at the AFLS vocational skills. Then we're going to also plug in some of the skills that your parents are asking of you, which are independently, unloading the dishwasher and putting your laundry in the machine and switching the laundry. If we can focus on the skills that you want, would you agree that we can take on some of these skills that your parents want? And so it really, with this individual adult learner, required a lot of, again, rapport. I go back to rapport as the key component, because there will be many times in our career as special educators or clinicians where not everyone in the room is going to agree on the goals. And we have to be able to navigate that conversation as the service provider, as the educator, in a way that is valuable to the ultimate person, which is the learner. And if you have an adult learner like this gentleman who could participate, that's perfect. We worked on working at Starbucks. We broke down the skills in a task analysis. He was able to get a job later, but it really did take him seeing, I can't hold a conversation with someone, right? In role play. I'm not able to, I don't even know what a coworker is. I didn't even think that I'd have coworkers. I really just want to make coffee and take money. But before he could get to that step, I had to show him all of the prerequisite skills that he had to meet to get to the goal that he wanted. And then from a parent perspective, I think the skills tracking grid, and Dr. Partington says this often, it's designed in a way for easy visual inspection, right? If we look at those grids and the baseline, the first assessment is blue, the second one is yellow, I can see from blue to yellow how many boxes were filled in, or if little to no boxes were filled in, what type of progress was occurring, which we can have a conversation with parents and saying, the ultimate goal is to fill in as many of these boxes for your child before I can help you get to this one skill area. And we're not quite there yet because we've got more prerequisites to focus on, which is why I've written these other goals. And really having the conversation where we aren't the expert saying, this is what I think your child needs, and not opening it up to sharing and educating and teaching so that we're all on the same page for the ultimate outcome. I hope I answered your question. I think I kind of all kinds of different options.
As you were talking, I got this idea, and maybe you want to do it, maybe you don't, but could we role play? Here and now?
Yeah.
I'm in.
Wait,
We're doing something different.
Okay. All right. Just to see how it goes. So, like, Autumn, if you're the special education teacher and this is you're the behavior analyst and I'm a parent and we're meeting for the, I guess, first time? First time. That's it. Just first time. You don't have any assessment results yet. School's going to start. What do you think?
This is what I did my dissertation on, actually, the very first meeting with the family.
All right. Then you're an expert.
Unprepared. And Autumn and I are thrown in, but we're a team. Let's do this.
All right. Let's say that I'm that kid I've started out describing earlier. So I'm not the kid. I'm the parent of the kid who's in kindergarten. And you guys have called me in for this meeting because you're noticing things. Maybe you want to do an assessment. Does that work?
Perfect.
Okay. So as a reminder, my child is not self-directing. He is needing hands-on help with lots of different things. And he's very sweet.
Hi, Mrs. Thanks for coming in today.
Well, thanks. I'm interested to hear what you guys are seeing.
Sure. I'm the behavior analyst here at the school. My name is Nissa Van Etten, and this is my colleague.
Autumn Bailey. I'm a special education teacher. Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming in today.
It's really nice to meet you. I hope he's been, doing what he's supposed to do and making progress that you guys are wanting to see. He loves school. It comes from talking about it. Well, it's fine.
Oh, we've loved having him in our class. I'm not the teacher, so I'm going to let Miss Bailey talk about what's going on in the classroom, but I'm here to support Miss Bailey as we really want to learn about what you're seeing at home and talk about kind of what we're planning for Johnny.
So he is such a sweet little guy. We love having him in the classroom. We noticed that he really kind of indicates what he wants by pulling us to see what he wants. Like if he wants to go outside, he'll pull us to the door. If he wants a snack, he'll kind of pull us to the cabinet with the snacks in it. Is he doing that same kind of thing at home?
Yeah, I guess so. It's just the two of us at home. So, and I guess I kind of just always know he's pretty much in a routine, and yeah, like he'll kind of take me to different things that he wants to do or play, but he doesn't ask for a lot of things just because we're in such a routine.
Okay, that makes sense. What about so he doesn't tell you that he wants anything or like looks around and points to things? Does he do any of that?
Yeah, he does. And he uses those words some too. He loves his pancakes, for example. So every morning when it's time to eat breakfast, if I'm rushing or whatever, he's going to ask for pancakes. But I can't really think of any other examples off the top of my head. All of his toys and everything are on his level, so he can get them himself.
Okay.
He just doesn't really ask for a lot. He's pretty self-sufficient.
Okay. The other thing we like to talk about is reinforcers. What does he really, really love at home that we can use at school so that we can get the best possible, what's the word? So we can teach him and then he will be reinforced really, really well. What does he use at home that he loves?
Paw Patrol.
Paw Patrol. That's a good one. I'm noting that.
Toys, cartoon, it does not matter if it's Paw Patrol related, he's there.
Okay. We love Paw Patrol. All little dogs.
So my role here in our conversation, inviting you in, is to really make sure that I'm taking notes on, what Johnny knows, what he can and cannot do. And that's kind of what we do when we get to know a learner or a student and start an assessment, is really understanding what he's doing at home, what he's doing at school, some of the things he loves. So, when I pop in and he gets to work with me, I make sure I have Paw Patrol ready and any of those toys that he kind of is indicating towards. And it sounds like you know him really well and you've got a great relationship, which is why, we also want to gain from you all of that knowledge about him so that we're prepared as we move towards helping him have the best outcomes here at school.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I know that he's a little behind developmentally, and I didn't know what to expect when he came to school. At preschool, it was pretty much just play, and the teachers always loved him. So I was concerned when you invited me here that you're going to say that he doesn't have the skills that he needs to be in the classroom. Is that something that we're thinking about?
So as a team, we aren't we don't look at the skills that he needs to be in a classroom. We look at providing and setting the foundation so that we can teach him any skills that he might need to do well in the classroom. He is doing a great job in the classroom. We're seeing he's participating well. I know he follows some of the instructions from Miss Bailey, but we're just making sure that he can kind of move through the classroom, with support. So does he need an adult to kind of step in? And we want to make sure we set that event by knowing all of the things he loves and what he already can do, which is what the assessment will tell us. So our first goal is to just get to know you and see kind of where he is in the home. We've done a little bit of getting to know him in the school, but from here, we want to really talk about planning and assessments. We can further identify what he can and cannot do, and then have some objectives from him to do even better and become more independent here in the school.
Well, okay. If that's true, then I guess the main thing I need you guys to be aware of is that, I think the things that bother you maybe at school, that you're concerned about at school, doesn't happen because he's comfortable at home. But honestly, he's very anxious, and he doesn't really try things. He's very afraid of trying new things, and he's resistant. And I don't actually know what to do when that happens, because if I push him, he cries and he screams, and then I feel bad because he's obviously in real distress, and I don't know what's right to do. Am I supposed to push him? Am I supposed to make him try? Am I supposed to back off? I don't know.
That sounds very, very difficult as a parent. I'm sure it's hard. You mentioned it was just the two of you, and making sure that you are taking care of his needs and supporting him and not pushing him. We completely understand. What we can do as we move forward with an assessment, and we'll send you some paperwork to really move on to the next steps, is also talk about some parent training and support and what that looks like here with us at school, with myself and Miss Autumn. And then also, before we can answer kind of understanding why he might be crying, or why he might be anxious in some of these scenarios, is doing a full kind of behavior plan, really looking at his behaviors. We'll get into more depth with you on how often he might be crying, what's happening before and after the crying, and really gathering some more information before we can support, but making sure we're looking for that and supporting you as best we can.
All right, I'm going to call it on the role play. Then I'm going to evaluate you guys.
We jumped right into that one.
Yeah. And full disclosure, some of that is real life for me. When my son hit kindergarten, and I don't think he's going to object to me sharing this, he had some fine motor issues, and he also was just shy and quiet. And really looking to other kids. He was so scared. He's so shy. He's looking at other kids for cues on what to do next or whatever. And the conversation that I had at kindergarten was nothing like what we just had. Absolutely nothing like that. It was, you're babying him. He's got to learn to become more independent, or he's not going to make it when he gets into first grade, things like that. And just very blamey, judgy as soon as they learned that he was an only child, that he had
Yeah.
a single parent, it just all turned into this, well, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do that. And none of what you guys just did in terms of just trying to get to know me and my experience occurred. And this, as you were talking, we're talking about something that was 20 years ago. And as you were giving me what I needed then, I started to literally have tears in my eyes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's terrible. I'm sorry. And the thing is, it's not ideal, but my experience and his experience was nothing like as traumatic or as serious. He didn't need lots of in-depth supports, that sort of thing. He didn't come from a troubled home. He didn't have a parent who was managing many different children and different issues in life. He had enough to eat. And so when I think about that was my experience.
Yeah.
How much worse it has to be for some of our other parents who have a lot more challenges than what I did and what he did.
It's one of the most important things I think that we as clinicians and educators can think about is, and I just was reading a book this weekend called Compassionomics by Stephen Terziak, and it's all about compassion in the medical field. And there's a story that I read out loud to my family where for those individuals in healthcare, and this was a woman who had gone into an ER, a grandmother who was the matriarch, there were moments in her care provided in the ER that were missed, and they were just compassionate questions where they could have saved her life. And the entire ER team was traumatized because now in terms of the actual care provided, top notch, they checked all the boxes, ran all the tests, found out all of the information needed, but the compassion with which she received was make or break in saving her life. And when they reevaluated the scenario for this woman, and I can go into the depth depending on time, they realized it was the lack of compassion that was what caused her death. And I think, again, that is a bigger outcome than what we're dealing with. But in a scenario like we just role played with you as the parent, every parent has had a history of some sort with medical care teachers, whomever they've interacted with, diagnosticians or lack of diagnosticians, where they may have heard or encountered someone who was checking a box who didn't have time for them and responded in a way that wasn't caring. And I think we can all think about any medical, or, I can think about teachers my children have had where it just left you with an unsavory taste of like, forget it. I'm just going to answer the questions and, I'll love on my children in another way. But you can think of that one person who just changed it. And I have stories from my own child recently who had a medical scare. And the EMT, the gentleman who administered his IV, for the rest of our lives, I will be grateful for this man who looked at me as the mom and said, he's going to be okay. We're going to do everything we can to help him, and touched my shoulder in a moment of distress and, not knowing whether or not he was going to make it. It is just that one moment of treating me as a human will forever be something I remember. And I think that's what we have to think about in the Compassionomics book. They'd say, look at that learner, that client, that patient as a whole person, not a number of skyscrapers or skills or an IEP that has to be written by a certain date, but a person who fits into a constellation of other people, which they call their family and their social network. It's so important.
It is. And the example you just gave of the EMT, that took no time at all. Just that he had to at some point have developed that skill of being able to look at a mom and identify, she's freaking out right now. I need to do, and it is my role, even though that's not my patient. That's a skill. It really is. I'm actually reading a book called The Good Life right now, which is the current leaders of the Harvard study that has followed people from, I think since the 1940s, and trying to identify the factors that make a difference in whether by the time you get to old age, by the time you die, do you see yourself as having a good life? Have you been happy? And it's all longitudinal and it's all interview. And then they take a lot of measures to confirm things. But the answer is, and it's not going to be surprising to you guys, is relationships. And that the more isolated you feel, the sooner you die. That is the bottom line. And this has been held up across many other studies too, cross culturally, and that your health goes down when you feel isolated. And when you are a parent of a child with a disability or the person with a disability themselves, and you are constantly fighting, and the people who love and understand you and listen to you are a very small group, all of whom are older than you, because a lot of times it is just those parents. What are they up against? And so that moment of connection with the service provider, the teacher, whoever it is who just, you may be doing more than you know whenever you show that empathy and when you treat them with that respect. So I don't know how this turned into my sentence, but it did.
We talk about that a lot too, about collaboration with the parents, that it's so, so, so important. And teaching with being a behavior analyst with the medical field, I mean, it's always so important to collaborate with the parent. I think some people are really good at it. I think some people are terrible at it. So we have the training, to talk about that. But if, you're just an empathetic person, I think you're more apt to be collaborative in all of those things that you're dealing with the student. It's unfortunate though that happened to you.
Well, again, and I don't want to whine about it too much because my experience has turned out great overall. But yeah, it's just a taste of if my experience with my background could be like that, what is it for other people? But I love the assessment process. That's always been my favorite part of services, and I just like to think of it as so much more than filling out an instrument, and that is a part of the assessment, right? Is learning all those dynamics. Well, let me go ahead and say the last word of the day. It is dependable. 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 I don't know if I have a sentence ready to roll on that one. Be dependable for empathy. How's that? Perfect. What is coming up is what, if anything, is coming up, and if there's not anything specific that's new or changing in the world of ABLLS, what are some guiding points that you guys have for clinicians who are interested in learning more and getting better at these skills? Two-part question. Take it whichever way it needs to go.
Got some great releases coming for CR assessment. So the team here at CentralReach will continue and is continuing to improve the product. So reporting and analytics will be coming out this spring. And then some other great features are curriculum added into the assessment. So for special educators, and then for some clinicians that might be new to the assessment, there will be the ability to click on a specific skill, and how you teach that skill, the materials necessary will all be added in the assessment portal. So got some great roadmap goals coming out for the assessment. One that we really are excited about, and I think Autumn shares the excitement, is kind of the use of AI in the assessment process. I know, Shannon, you would ask, are there ways to kind of hone in on select the skills? I don't have a date for that, but I know that the product team is working really hard with Dave here at CR in regards to kind of what skills to select according to the information you feed the tool. And what are some areas that it'll populate it to you as a clinician to determine, yep, this is what I think I should focus on, or I'm going to disregard and use my own clinical judgment or my own judgment as the educator.
Yeah, and for those of you who may not be aware, our January episode was with Dave Stevens, who is our AI guru at CentralReach. So you can go back and listen to January's episode if you want to learn more about the AI objectives going on here. Yeah, and also, I don't know, whenever we have an episode that has to do with a product that we own, I always feel like I want to put this message out to our listeners that although this is what we're talking about, it is a CR product. It is for sale. We do have some benefit that we obtain whenever you do that. Purchase those things or use those things. That's not our goal here today. We're not here just to tell you that this is a great tool. You should come and buy it. We're here to tell you that if you need support in identifying those skills and tracking those skills. We want to give you the information, and some of that's going to be very specific to the ABLLS and AFLS process, but some of it, like the stuff that we just did, is good information even if you're not using ABLLS and AFLS, I would say. So do we have some courses that you can think of, Nissa, that would be useful to people looking for more?
Yeah, we've got some intro to assessment just in general. So there is a course I think I developed a couple of years ago. We'll have to refresh it, but it is just kind of assessment selection from the beginning to the end, from a learner coming in, building rapport, gathering that intake information, and then how to set up for the assessment. And then we have some assessments from the lens of bringing in culturally responsive care. So, what are some great questions to ask every family, not just the family that you notice is different from yourself as the service provider, but that makes it equitable for every family coming into care. So a couple of courses we can link there as well.
Yeah. And I do also think that's one of those places. We are currently beta testing our RBT chatbot that goes in with our RBT 40-hour course. So another thing to think about for any of you who may be involved in that beta test is you can do things like that with Carrie. You can ask, I'm not sure how to, how to build rapport or show empathy. Can we role play for a moment? And Carrie has some of those skills. So those of you who are in our beta, go ahead and see what happens there. We'll watch on the back end and see what the performance is, because I think it's a really good use of AI to have those safe spaces to practice skills that are hard. And maybe like you said, Autumn, not everybody does it come naturally for, but the more you practice, the better you get. So I like listening for opportunities that we can get those extra practices in, even though time and money, resources, and availability of other humans to do it with sometimes aren't there. All right. Any closing thoughts, things you guys want to make sure everybody knows before we close today?
I think the role play was fun. I was sweating a little bit. Right? We'll be doing it more. My recommendation, if you listened in, grab your supervisor, grab a colleague, grab your spouse, your significant other, a friend, and role play. I think we forget how close to contact with the contingencies we can get just role playing even with someone who doesn't know exactly what we do. Just, hey, role play being a parent that's upset. Hey, role play, being a learner who is trying to tell me something without using words. It just keeps us on our toes. And again, EST is a gold standard of what we do as a science.
Absolutely. How about you, Autumn? Where will you be? Where can they hear more from you?
Well, definitely the trainings for the school districts. We are working on those. And yeah, I really want to kind of talk about that parent training. I think, that collaboration is just so, so important. So we do have that in our trainings. We talk about that all the time, but really, making sure that you're collaborating with that parent, making sure that they're helping with the goals as well. It's so, so important to us.
Right. Well, thank you guys. This has been fun and educational, and I really appreciate the willingness to experiment and role play. And, even in school, we were all like, oh, don't choose me. And you guys, I had nobody. The only school year you had to participate. And you did a great job. So thank you. All right. So everyone, if you want to get your CEU, you have your 3 secret words. So you can head on over to CR Institute and get that done. Otherwise, we will be back again in March. And one other thing I will say is when you go get your CEU, look at the next page, where I think it's the next page, but somewhere before you get completely out of that process, we'll give you some links to some of the resources that were mentioned here today. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Behavioral View. To get your CEU, follow the link in the instructions below. You can then go to the attendance verification quiz, where you'll enter in the secret words and pay the CEU fee to generate your certificate. If you've already done the work, you may as well get the credit.